Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 122 of the Need to Nerd podcast. I'm your host, Heezy. What's wrong?
Are we? Is it 122?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You just looked at me like I was a psychopath or something. Anyway, welcome to the podcast.
I'm the
You got it.
psychopath,
You got some thoughts
apparently.
there, Patty, about 122?
No. I'm apparently the psychopath. So
What you think was like 300? What is your
no, I
brain?
wish we'll get there.
Anyway, this is Need to Nerd Podcast. It's a weekly podcast about our need to nerd and sharing it with you, the listener. However, I want to talk about something that's really important to me and why we didn't have an episode last week. So, we are re recording an episode that we did last week on our top 5 favorite Disney movies. And you might ask, Spencer, why would you re record that? And the reason is me. I really try to not yuck people's yum. It's a phrase that I heard on another podcast that I really loved, where it's like, you get to love what you love, and that's okay. You like pineapple on pizza? Good for you. Don't order it at the party, but you can like it. And something that happened during the podcast, I felt like, is we had different rules for our top 5s. And one of the main differences is that we really cared about soundtrack. And I specifically tried to remove soundtrack as far as not letting it influence my favorite film. And you specifically really cared about the soundtrack when talking about your top 5 favorite films. So I just wanted to re-record this as it's okay that we have different expectations, not expectations, different rules for what makes something your favorite. And one of the things that when I watch TikTok or YouTube, it really bugs me when people are like, your favorite thing is wrong, because that's not how favorite things work.
Right.
Yep. That's just, you can't be wrong. I was talking to my co-host of Smash Through before this, and he gave me his top 3 favorite Disney films, and I was shocked.
What were Matt's top 3?
I gave you his top 5.
I'm curious.
I gave you his top 5. Matt's top 5. I don't know the order, but Frozen, Tangled. Ooh, I'm missing one. Emperor's New Groove, Hercules, and there's another New Age Disney movie that was in his top 5.
Okay.
And it was funny. He's like, I can do my top 3, and he's like, Tangled or Frozen, Tangled. I don't remember I wish I remember what the third one was. And he's like, what's yours? And I read him mine. And he's like, oh yeah, these are on mine too. But it's so funny because I didn't have that reaction with him. I wasn't like, oh, I've as a dad, I've probably seen Disney movies more than people who aren't parents. And the thing is that Matt is a dad, and I know how much he's seen Tangled and Frozen and still loves them. So I think that's impressive. Anyway, I'm here. I'm Spencer. We got Patty B. And today we're talking top 5 Disney films. But before we do, there's a rhino in the house. Patty B, what is our nerd fact of the week?
Yes. So, something I learned, and now I have to pull it up specifically, because we got a link to our cast did their bios and headshots and stuff, and I found out that we have a celebrity kind of in of Disney in our in my cast of Hunchback of Notre Dame. So
for those who don't know, Patty B is Quasimodo in the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
In this upcoming production. And there's a celebrity. Well, who to be?
I'm pulling it up right now.
This is awkward. I'm dancing because it's awkward. Audio listeners
probably just
gotta
have
love
to.
this.
I know. I'm sorry. Probably have to just edit it out.
Are you just trying to find his name?
Yeah, I'm trying. Well, yeah. So that, but also like there's more. It's not just
Just IMDb him.
all right. So, um, Mark Walton, um, is what is in our choir. So we have a full live orchestra for this show, which is the first time it's happened for me since high school. We have a full choir for this show, um, that sings the music alongside of us, and he was a make believe famous Disney artist and for Hunchback doing mall tours, drawing pictures of Quasi and all these different characters. He also voiced Rhino in the Disney movie Bolt, along with tons of other um, stuff. So
You,
Barry Bob and Home on the Range, Goosey Lucy and Chicken Little. Like this dude is so cool.
you love to see it. You know, what I love to see is like people continuing to do local theater. So, uh, Bolt's not going to make my top 5 Disney films, but it would probably make my daughter's right now, as I've now watched it 13 times in the last like 2 months. She loves it.
Gotcha.
Let's go on to our
Cool.
housekeeping. Then we have the Discord where people talking about trading Pokemons. There are sometimes Spencer accidentally posts cards that aren't really in the new Magic set, but like the excitement gets to him and he's like, Wasteland, what? Anyway, there's all kinds of things in the Discord. Head on over, check it out, and share the show with your friends. That's the housekeeping this week. We're not going to go too far into everything. There is a contest. Like, subscribe, and comment here on the YouTube channel. Win yourself a Nintendo console with the newest iteration of Smash Bros. Once we hit 1,000 subs, we're going to be giving that out. Top 5 favorite Disney. Woo, baby. There's a lot of things that can be said about Disney. We're not going to say any of it. We're going to just do something else. And just talk about the things that we love in the Disney world. And Patty B, this is just our favorite Disney films. We're going to let you start.
Yeah, I cheated. I have a honorable mention.
Oh, well then I'm going to cheat too. I'm just going to say everything that was on my list. See, I wasn't going to do it this time.
I know.
Of the
I know.
recording. But if you're going to cheat,
I know. I don't feel like I could have it's so hard. This was Spencer. This was so hard. Even a week later, I could have changed things,
dude,
right?
I did change things. Mine is because one of them was. Oh, while I'm pulling this up, why don't you talk about the rules? Like, what
Okay.
qualifies as a Disney film?
So we wanted to stick with Disney animation. So that means not Pixar, not um, Disney animation specifically. And so that is where we tried to keep things. I'm trying to remember what one of Spencer's rules that he didn't want to have was for music. As someone who is so ingrained in musical theater, like the I this doesn't happen without music.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally
For
fair.
me,
One of the things that I think that I had to separate myself from is like there were a bunch of like live. I didn't realize how many live action Disney movies I like legitimately love. Well, they're
mm-hmm.
not Disney animation. It's like Disney produced this film. It's great, so on and so forth. Anyway, here's my list of things that you can consider hearing me talk about today. We have The Lion King, we have Aladdin, we have Oliver and Company, we have Rescuers Down Under, we have a Goofy movie, we have Hercules, we have Mulan, we have Tarzan, we have Embers New Groove, Lilo and Stitch, Big Hero 6, Wish, Tarzan, and Brother Bear. I had Soul on my list, and it was if you had heard the unreleased episode that we recorded last week. This is my top 3. Guess what? Soul is a Pixar movie, and I did not know that. Tell you what, if we do Pixar films, it's going to come in at number 1, baby. But one of the things that I notice about my list, and something that we'll get into, is like there are kind of 2 eras of Disney on my list. outside of Oliver and Company, which is older. But
Hmm.
I very much, I was born in 1990. For those who don't know, and my first movie I ever saw in theaters was The Lion King. And so the what they call it, the Disney Renaissance, is really close to my heart. There's only one movie in that entire time that I like don't just love. Um, and it's so funny. Like The Little Mermaid, I think came out right before I was born. I think that came out in 1989 or something. It was like the year before The Lion King. But like the this golden era of Disney is huge on my thing. And then there's the this next iteration of Disney. You have like Emperor's New Groove, Lilo and Stitch. That is this like what do we do now era of Disney. And I don't know. I had a long list, and I had to narrow this down. I know that you're going to talk about your honorable mention, but like, I think I just
Because
mentioned.
your honorable mention now made it into your top 5, right? That was kind of what we did. Was like you bumped that one up.
Oh, don't spoil anything.
Okay. Sorry.
But what I want to say is like I just mentioned 15 films that could have made my list,
Hmm.
and honestly, like if you ask me this in a year, right, depending on what my kids are watching, what I'm watching, my top 5 Disney films will change. Like that, it's just there's a lot of times where Oliver and Company would have been like top 3. So anyway, what's your honorable mention?
So my honorable mention is Beauty and the Beast, which like I don't know how I squoze all of these movies in here. Like whenever I was growing up, like in high school or not, like you'd go to steak dances, and that would be like one of your like ice breaking questions, like what's your
For
favorite Disney princess?
for what it's
Because
worth, that's a church dance for people that don't
sorry,
live in
yeah,
Utah.
right, yeah, it's a church dance where you meet other young also churchers. Um, and you were able to, funnily enough, you were able to gauge a lot about a person based off of their favorite Disney princess. Um, and mine was Belle, and the music from Beauty and the Beast is fantastic, amazing. I've done the show, and it how it has a special place in my heart, and it was hard to keep it off of my favorite Disney movie list.
I have a question.
Yeah.
My favorite Disney princess is Ariel. What does that say about me?
I can't go into that on this podcast. We're a family-friendly podcast.
Whoa!
Woo! No,
What?
I I don't know. I can't remember. It okay, maybe it felt like you could gauge a lot from like what
I
my
just
favorite
wanted.
Disney
I
princess
just wanted.
was.
You said that. I was like, what does it say? Like my favorite Ariel is
I don't know. It's
very
been
curious, and I'm
many
like,
years since I've been in that environment.
since you were 17, it's been a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I have Beauty and the Beast thoughts.
Okay.
There are really good moments of Beauty and the Beast that I really appreciate. Um, the mob song, I don't like when they're going down to the castle, and he's holding like, is it Kill the Beast? What is the name of the song?
I think it is called the Mob Song. Let me pull up the soundtrack
I
here.
think it is. I also think it's called the mob song, but like it's
Yeah.
like Kill the Beast.
Yeah.
Dude, that song is so good, and I didn't realize it until I watched it with my kids. And that never stuck out to me as a kid as like, oh, this is like so good. What's also funny is Beauty and the Beast does this really good job of feeding the narrative with its music, and I don't think that all Disney movies do this. Like sometimes you're like literally like taken out of the movie for a song, brought back into the movie. Beauty and the Beast is not like that. Like I think every single song feeds the narrative, and I think that's really strong for a Disney movie.
Yeah, so that is 100%. um, the the music informs what you're watching. It pairs really well. It's another one of those Alan Menken classics. And yes, I did look it up just now. It is called the Mob Song. So
That's a terrible name. But anyway, it's your film. Like I obviously wax poetic. What are your thoughts?
um, I'm lost. Sorry. What are my thoughts?
On Beauty and the Beast, man. Like
Oh, I thought I gave them.
you gave them
Just
all.
that yeah, it was hard to keep this off of my list. Um, it's kind of funny because there a lot of it's not can kind of take you out of reality with these characters that are inanimate objects. Um, but I don't know, the colors and
Oh
um
yeah.
like there's just it just is feels very iconic Disney. Like
I think Beauty and the Beast does like a really good job of like being Disney. Like
yeah,
um uh, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. Is this a Hans Christian Andersen? Is this
story
story? Yeah. Who is this an OG Disney or is this? I actually don't know this one.
based off the 1756. It is a fairy tale of the same name by
Okay.
Jean Marie Le Prince de Beaumont,
Oh, hence the Frenchness of this.
who is
I
only
I
credited in the
have to
French
ask
dub.
before we move on from your honorable mention. 2017, Emma Watson, Josh Gad, Luke Evans.
Hmm.
Where are we
Hmm.
at with that?
So I loved Emma Watson as Belle. I think that the cast was pretty great. Did not love Josh Gad as LeFou.
Josh Gad is going to hear this and he'll never
I know,
come on our podcast now.
I love him so much. But like, I don't know. Like, and that I don't know why I didn't like resonate with him as
Do I have
LeFou.
to edit that out?
Um
What if Josh Gad
I don't
never comes on our
I don't
podcast
I
now?
don't know, Spencer. I'm
Oh
sorry.
my
That's
gosh, you
just
just ruined our whole
that's what
show.
I feel. The other thing that like bugs me as a like someone who like loves musical theater is they the song Evermore in that one is not in like the show. Like Beast has a different kind of like moody Beast song. And it's If I Can't Love Her. And so like that one was made just for the movie. Um which I've always had a bit of a like
Okay.
grudge because If I Can't Love Her is one of my favorite songs from the show.
I have seen the live action Beauty and the Beast one time. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so funny because like people have this like visceral reaction to the live action Disney movies. I've loved all of them.
Yeah, I think it's one of my wife's favorites for what it's worth.
Like
And she loves that song.
like
Oh.
but for what it's worth, it is I do think that the live action is like tonally different
Mhm.
than the cartoon. Which is interesting. Like you would think that like they would be I actually think they're very different films. We should totally
Mm.
do a series on live action versus
Ooh, that would be cool.
that'd be cool. Okay. All right. So I guess I'm doing my number 5.
Yeah.
Who put the glad in Gladiator? You're supposed to say it.
Oh, Hercules.
Yeah.
I want to get copyright struck. That was so good. It was so close to the original that
We're just fantastic.
yeah.
See, top fives are so hard when you like think about something as great as Disney. And I was talking, like as I said, I was talking to my co-host of Smash there, and I was like, my original intent was to remove the soundtrack. But if there is a Disney film whose soundtrack pushes the film forward at every moment that someone is singing, it's Hercules. There is not a song that doesn't push the narrative. There is not a moment in the song that doesn't push the narrative. You learn things about the characters during those moments. And also just like, it's so funny. I actually have like really fond memories of Hercules. I remember I probably asked my mom every week for months, is Hercules a blockbuster yet? Is Hercules a blockbuster yet? Is Hercules like, I saw it in theaters and all I wanted to do was watch that movie again and again. I also remember the cereal box with the Hydra, like there. Oh man, cereal boxes were so much cooler back in the day. Anyway,
Yeah.
uh,
You got a lot of like the toys and cereal boxes was like also, or like the
I
spoons,
I think
like
that the Hercules like plates are actually like collector's items
yeah.
that are worth like a lot of money. I honestly like Hercules holds like this special place where I'm a middle child, and I think that it's like the time where like it was my movie, and like I didn't have like siblings watching it a ton. I didn't have
Mm.
other stuff, like it was very much like Spencer time, and I don't know. I it first of all, the songs in Hercules also are iconic and great. Like I think that Go the Distance is like one of the best musical theater audition songs that you could possibly sing, because it shows range, character, like it's like a really good like I'm gonna show like both my vocal chops, but also like my like physical emotions into a song.
Mm-hmm.
Also like uh dude, Meg.
Meg was my first crush.
Is that true?
Yeah.
So I'll just spoil this. This is your number 3.
Yes.
So like I'll let you talk, because like I have a lot more to say, but like go off.
Yeah. So everything you said about the music, pushing it forward, and um it's just so good, right? Like it's upbeat, high energy. Um not that it's just like part of the story narrative. Um I have sung Go the Distance um so many times, like in voice, like different voice lessons, and there's some really fun things musically, like technically, that happen in that song, with different key changes and tempo changes that gives it that like pushing forward. Um, so that's really great. Also, Alan Menken did the music. um, I'll note that every time that he appears on our list. It's he appears a lot on my top 5. Um, and yeah, like everything surrounding this movie. This movie, let's see, I was born in 92, so this came out when I was like 5 years old. It was like just like the perfect like time for um oh 90, yeah, yeah, 92, 97. So it was like the perfect Disney range. It was in this window of mid to late 90s.
My wife and I often like we'll sit there and we're like, what's the best Disney soundtrack? And this one's always in our conversation. You've got like the thing is that you've got like different kind of how do I want to say this, like different things in Disney soundtracks.
Mhm.
You've got your things like Phil Collins does something, you're like, okay, well, okay.
Yeah.
But then you got this, and what's so funny about this film is kind of what we just said, right? Like it. I think that one of the things as I watched this film recently is you have Go the Distance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it has to be like less than 7 minutes later, you get the reprise of Go the Distance. And that, I don't think that's normal for a film for the reprise to be so soon. But like I said, it all feeds the narrative, and I just think it's so strong. I also think that like the voice acting is great. I mean, we are obviously getting a live action Hercules. It's coming. We know it. They've announced it.
Have they? That's awesome.
Have they not?
That's cool. I don't know if that was. I know they're working on a like Broadway show.
They are 100% doing a live action Hercules.
Perfect.
Michael B. Jordan is Hercules,
Oh,
and
cool.
Danny DeVito is reprising this film.
Ah, yes.
Well, it's so funny because I was
Perfect.
going to say Danny DeVito crushes this role. Like it's unbelievable. Anyway, that's my number 5. I could go. Well, this is not a Hercules podcast. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I watched this the other night along with
You
I
watched it the other night?
I watched it the other night along with Hunchback number 2, um, the direct to movie sequel, which like I was kind of like swear like I don't know. I
I think
rewatched it and it's not as bad as I had
no, it's
initially
not.
like.
They never are. Like everybody talks crap on those direct movie sequels, but most of them are pretty good.
Yeah. It was great that he finally finds his love. This show is so interesting because they're it's based off of the Victor Hugo novel. There's been lots of tellings of it over the years. Um and it's wild the things they kind of had to cut down to make it a G-rated movie, right? Because there's a lot of stuff from the source material of like, I mean, we start the movie with um Frollo going to kill baby Quincy. Um all the anti like Romani sentiment, um and yeah, there's just a lot of like really adult themes in this movie. Um that like it's wild that how they were able to get that to be a G-rated movie. So, it's something that you can enjoy as a kid, um, for the music, the story. It has a happy ending. It doesn't have a happy ending in every other telling. Um, and the music is great. It's got one of the best villains of all time, and um, yeah, again, it's another Alan Menken music. Um,
I love complicated villains. I think that
yeah,
like that's always really cool. I will say that like as a kid, I'm free, dang it is like one of my favorite moments in the film.
yeah. That 'cause he breaks out of his chains like twice, right? I I noticed the other night too. The he falls into a sewer drain, or like what you'd equate to that, and there is a sign that is not French, but it says "Mon Sewer." It's like Monsieur. It's like
That's hysterical. Yeah,
the references and stuff are awesome.
I think that like the things that stand out to me in this film are the gargoyles. They're
Mhm.
obviously the comic relief in a lot of ways. Um, I think that this film like looking back on my childhood, like this came out in 1996. Like I remember seeing it. I think this one like skipped over me a little bit. Like I was a little lost on me, and I think that like there are like a lot like don't get me wrong, like the gargoyles I found funny. I obviously watched a lot of these things. The I think that like this movie's a little bit more mature, and I think you kind of highlighted why is that they tried to like play down the mature themes of this, but I think that the voice acting in this one's great.
Hmm.
The the animation in this one, I was thinking about it since our last, since we recorded. Like, uh, there's a moment where Quasimodo's like up on the tower,
Hmm.
and I didn't even watch it, but I just remembered it, and I was like, oh man, that is like a beautiful scene. Like
Yes.
sometimes you have to understand, especially like in this era of Disney, that like somebody did that. Like somebody made that scene, and that's so cool.
Yeah. The the animation was ahead of its time, I would say. I just am reading along here some of the other things. Like it was the fifth highest grossing film of that year. Um, uh, so it was very very successful, and um, it's yeah, it's wild how like I mean that's a lot of the message of this movie, and for what it's worth, the show is getting you to think. They ask you the question at the beginning and the end. You know, who's the monster? What makes a monster? What makes a man? Um, everyone is kind of a flawed character, and I like that.
Let's go to my number 4. We have Lilo and Stitch.
Woohoo!
This There's a lot of things to say about Lilo and Stitch, but I want to start with the marketing campaign. Do you remember the marketing for Lilo and Stitch?
Um, not really.
I'm gonna,
What
I'm
did they
gonna,
What did they do?
you're gonna remember it as I say it.
Okay.
Lilo or Stitch goes into every Disney film. So his spaceship like ruins a whole new world for.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
you remember it now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
Okay.
crashes the chandelier in Beauty and the Beast.
Right.
It was like, this dude is here to wreck stuff. There's a lot of reasons I love Lilo and Stitch. Um, I think that I I wish that I could save the moment that you had on the last podcast, but like I'm not autistic, but I am different, and everybody's a little bit different, and Lilo specifically, as a is it's funny. I watched a video today that was talking about like presenting autism in media, and they didn't mention Lilo, but I just think that she is like the most kind representation of autism that Disney has ever done,
Hmm.
and it's really beautiful when you think about like they could make her weirder, they could make it like more obvious, but instead they just made her Lilo. They they made her who she is, and I don't know. I think that there's something really beautiful about that. I also think that there's like something special about like finding the friend. Um, Lilo and Stitch has some like really crazy moments. For me, like I'm like a total crybaby when Stitch is like, I'm lost reading. Dude, you're gonna cry too. It's okay. It's fine. We're gonna make it through. Like there are so many amazing moments in this film, and it's like this OG Disney story that's so different, like this sharp departure from what Disney was doing before. I I I could go off. I could wax poetically about this film for so long. It's funny. It's heartwarming. It it's it's quotable. Like there's so much in Lilo and Stitch. Um, I think that like for a lot of people, um, they found their Ohana through this, and I just think that's beautiful.
Yeah. So this movie, um, it had one of the I'm remembering the marketing campaign and looking at the theatrical release, like, poster release, um, it, like, has all these other Disney characters who are, like, freaking out about Stitch, and it's 'cause he came in and wrecked their movies, um, but not only did it was a really good movie, it's one of the few, like, spin-offs or thing that had, like, really awesome spin-offs. I think all of um they had a couple direct-to-video sequels as well as the Lilo and Stitch the series.
Dude,
Um
that have you watched that?
Mhm.
Dude, that series is so good. What's so funny to me is there. I don't know if people know this. Stitch was so popular in Japan that they had to make a Japanese anime about him
Oh, yeah?
that Lilo is not in.
Wow, okay.
Like, that's how popular he was in Japan. Like, that beloved of his character. Anyway, keep going.
Um, so there is I'm sorry, I'm losing it here. So it had those really good, other content along like, that followed the movie, um, and, it really kinda captured Hawaii, like, it it's a very good even animation, but, like, some of those concepts of family and, um, sticking together and being all for, um, the island and, that we're just kinda here, that there's, it's bigger picture than us. Um, it does a really good job, portraying that.
Yeah, I think that like uh I don't know if it's because Maxwell just got mad obsessed, but like Maxwell like watched this film was like this is the best Disney movie. Watched all the movies, watched all the stuff. It's Stitch's like this like Disney character that I think is like very unique in that it's Disney. Like it's very different. Let's talk about some hair though. There's some hair in the show right now. Um,
Yeah, so my number 4 is Tangled. Tangled, tangled. Um, that's not a song in the show. But it was kind of for me. I kind of talked about with the first with Hunchback and with Hercules how like I was just like the right age for those movies when they came out. But Tangled was like the last Disney movie that came out before I graduated high school. Um, it was kind of like it was an end of an era and the beginning of an era where I think this was the first um, Disney movie that had blended animation styles. Like it wasn't the traditional 2D animation. It was the 50th um, like Disney animation picture, right? So that was a huge deal. There was a lot of promotion surrounding that, um, and um, yeah, it again another Alan Menken score, and it was yeah, just kind of the last like movie as a kid, as a teenager that before I became an adult.
dude, I remember so vividly when this movie came out. Um, when I was like a sophomore, all my friends were like seniors,
Hmm.
and a junior, and then when I was a senior, all my friends were sophomores, because like all my friends had graduated, I made new friends, right?
Hmm.
And so when this movie came out, I had already graduated, but like all my friends that were still in high school loved this movie. Like this was the best Disney movie of all time. This was like the goat. And I I think I've talked about this in the show. Like, I have a really hard time when stuff like that happens, where like people are like hype up something really hard, And I've gained a real appreciation of this movie since then because of my daughter. She loves this movie. Um, there are, I think the strength of this movie is uh, in its side characters. To be honest, like I think that like uh, having characters that don't speak that feed the narrative is always really strong. And I think that when you think about like the fact that it's a kids movie, I think that that helps a lot. Like if the kids get the fact that like they're not speaking and that it's moving forward, it's a really big deal. And I think this movie does that really well. I
Mhm.
also think uh, the the comedy in this film is uh,
It's pretty top tier.
it's really good. And like I'm trying to think of like how to explain this. Like Flynn Rider is both a main character and a comic relief, which I don't think is normal. Like I think that it's like pretty unique in the films for like one of the two leads to actually be the comic relief. And I think that they do a really good job of that.
Yeah, I think that it's just I think part of the storytelling lends it to that where you have a fish out of water scenario and you have a fish who's you know a, your Flynn Rider character who is uh you know master of the navigating the outside world. Um and so that dynamic lends for really good comedy. Um I also think I love the entire cast and crew of the Ugly Duckling, um, all of those Big Nose Thug, the Hook Hand Thug, Vlad. Um, really good voice casts for a lot of these, right? Like Brad Garrett is the hook handed guy. Ron Perlman is one of the Stabbington brothers. Jeffrey Tambor, Richard Keel. Um, so really good cast there. And speaking of I Have a Dream and the Ugly Duckling folks, that's another reason why this one made it into my top 5 was I got to perform I was in a song and dance performing team in St. George for Utah Tech University called Raging Red. We did a lot of showing people that like college isn't just like your degrees or you don't have to be a musical theater like degree to love to sing and dance and that there's like more to that. We went on a few tours and one of them was to China, and I actually got to perform it, I Have a Dream on the Great Wall, and so that was really cool.
You told me the story obviously last time we recorded, and it's just unbelievable to me. That's amazing. I also just want to like, can we just like shout out Mandy Moore? Like
Oh
she was
yeah.
supposed to be like Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, and then like there was like Mandy Moore was supposed to be like the other super pop star, and
Hmm.
she just like transitioned so well into like just acting. Like,
Hmm.
This Is Us was like the thing that made me cry every week for like a long time. I don't know. Like she crushes everything she does. I'll go next. My number 3 is An Emperor's New Groove, and this is. I have to start off by saying this is the most quoted movie in my house, but it's only one line. Because what happens is my wife and I will call each other while we're driving, listening to music, and then we'll answer and say, "You threw off my groove." like, like I was jamming out to this song, but it's the most quoted thing in my house by like a substantial margin.
A llama, he's supposed to be
Be
dead.
dead. It's so funny. This movie is I think my favorite piece of Disney history. Like, even if this wasn't on my list, it's hysterical how this came about. And I was, as I said, I was talking to my co-host, Smash Through Matt Kling. He didn't know the history. He's like, he, so maybe you know, but
Oh
uh,
yeah.
so this movie doesn't have a script.
Nope.
There's no script. So this originally was like a classic Disney movie with, you got your songs. It's like about the sun god, and like there was this whole thing that got scrapped. Something else happened. Something else happened. Something else happened. However, at the same time that all those something else happened, Disney made a deal with McDonald's for a toy release for the Happy Meal that they could not go back on.
Yeah.
So the film had to come out and the toys had to be ready. And so we end up with this ad libbed, very different John Goodman, amazing film. This film is legitimately a work of like people that just work hard and get stuff done, and I love it. Like, uh, there are so many moments in the film that you're like, why does this work? Like, why is this funny? And I think one of the things that like really stands out to me is there's a moment where they get back to the like the palace or whatever, and Yzma and Kronk have beat them back, and they're like, "How did you beat us?" And they're like, "We don't know." Like, like who cares? Like, it's like the like it's not like fourth wall breaking. There's a lot of that in this film, but like it is so tonally different than other Disney movies, while also just being this like I don't know, like thing of beauty. The TV show not as good. Like I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like the Cusco's high school TV show is any good. I think it's actually pretty bad. But this film, out of this world. Like it's one of if not the funniest Disney movies. Um, I think it's super quotable. I just mentioned this film and like Matt just jumped off the bat with like Cusco's poison for Cusco.
Yeah.
Like just the whole thing, and the voice acting is amazing. Every moment is it is treasured in my heart, Peggy.
Yeah. Something to say is like with all the different retooling, right? I think the initial name of this movie was supposed to be like Kingdom of the Sun. It was had these like huge overarching like Incan myth like thing and how it was able to shift and change to meet that deadline and in part to get like Patrick Warburton, John Goodman, David Spade, right, as the lead playing Cusco, like having these three fantastic comedians and Eartha May, Kit, uh, as Yzma, um, just put throwing it all together and making it work is
I mean,
and a lot of it's improv, and so
if you just
that's why
look
there's
at
not like a script.
the first five cast, right? David Spade, John Goodman, Eartha Kitt, Patrick Warburton, and Wendy Malick.
Hmm.
I just like they destroyed it. They took this thing and ran with it, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah, 100%. This movie is so quotable, and it's um we have a whiteboard in our back of house that and there are lots of quotes from this movie that end up on there um from time to time. So that that makes tons of sense.
We already talked about your number three.
Yes.
Let's go to your number two.
My number two is, well, so let me go back here. Um,
Let's talk about your number two, Patty B.
my my number two is your number one, actually.
Yeah, that's factual.
Um, that is factual. So this one, it's gonna be top of mind for a lot of folks. Or it would be the top of many folks' lists. And that is The Lion King. Um, it's hard to imagine a Disney film without this, or a list of Disney films without this on there. Um, it is so good. It's been retold many times.
It is
Some
the
we
literal longest running musical on Broadway
Yeah.
ever by like a substantial margin. I looked this up after we did our last. Like, it's
Yeah.
still going.
Yes.
It is. Guess what? People still haven't seen it on Broadway, and they're still going. It sells out every night. Like, it is. Yeah. Anyway, keep going. It's your number two. You go off.
Yeah. And that's, maybe controversial, right? That it's my number two. I just have this supreme and guttural connection to the my number one. But like, this was like the first professional theater production that I had seen, right? Was uh high school. We went down to
This
Las
is
Vegas
so,
to
so
see.
funny. Like, some of your stuff has nothing to do with the movies,
I
and
know, but like,
it's so
it's
funny to
it's
me.
about the story, which
Yeah,
connects back to how awesome this movie is.
yeah,
Um, this, and you can tell Hamlet a million different times,
dude.
but
It's the
like
best version of Hamlet. I
it yeah.
I remember in high school we were talking about Hamlet. I remember what we were doing, but there were like multiple versions of Hamlet that I had quoted, um, for a thing, like an assignment that I did. I think one of them was gone. It was like Hamlet for Shakespeare Impaired or something, which was beautiful. It was like one of the greatest things I've ever read. One of them was Lion King, and then there was another one that I quoted at the time. But I, obviously, this is my number one. We've already kind of talked about that. Uh, I could wax poetic about the Lion King forever. Um, when people are like, Spencer, what's your favorite movie? I often have to ask them, do you want my favorite film? Like, my son will ask me this, Dad, what's your favorite movie?
Hmm.
And I'll say, like, do you want my favorite movie? Or do you want what I think is the best movie ever created? Because I think The Lion King is like up there of like literally pound for pound the best film ever made. And it's so funny because like there's controversy of like, did they steal this? Like, is this, whatever. I I think that like this movie, it changed animation forever. It Hans, the score of this film, like we talked a lot about soundtracks in this thing, and like the soundtrack here is like Elton John. It's absolutely amazing. Nobody's gonna sit here and pretend like Lion King doesn't have like a top 10 Disney soundtrack, but the score of this film, what the fetch?
Yeah, it's so good. Oh,
Like,
it's
he's running through the desert to get back to the, like, nothing is happening, Patty B. He's running through the desert to get back to the Pride Lands. It's like one of the best parts of the movie. All that's
yeah.
happening is Hans Zimmer's score.
That's his bulk up session, right?
It's
It's him
so
like
crazy.
getting swole for the fight. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the comedy is out of this world. Like, one of the things, we'll talk about this when we get to my number two, but like, this is one of those films that like, this is a special place. This is the first movie I ever saw in theaters. I remember it vividly. I saw it at the Villa, which is now a rug shop in Holiday,
Like,
Utah.
yeah.
They used to show one film at a time. Uh, I also saw your number one at this theater. Um, but I remember it so vividly, and I also remember the trailer for this movie coming out. Like I would watch things at home, and like this would be like coming soon to a theater near you, like on VHS tapes or whatever.
Yeah.
This movie, I think that one people expected it to be like really good, and then it
Mm.
over delivers on every level. Um, you know, Alicia. I remember Alicia watching this for the first time. I filmed her reaction. I remember Maxwell watching this. I like a lot of Disney films give you trauma that you probably don't need at the age that like you watch them at. And
Sure.
this
Yeah.
one does it, but does it in like a really good way. And I the spin-offs are great. Like I think that Lion King 2 Simba's Pride is like absolutely a banger. I think that the Lion Guard, I've seen every episode multiple times with both my kids. It's absolutely a banger. Yeah, I
Even one and a half. I loved one and a half.
dude, I talked to my wife about this like 2 years ago. There was like this TikTok trend of dig a tunnel, dig a tunnel, and like she's like, this is the worst song. I was like, no, the song is a banger. It's a banger. No, the whole thing is great. I, there was the Timon and Pumbaa TV show for a little while in the '90s.
Hmm.
Everything about this is great. I I can keep going, but like I legitimately don't just. This isn't just my favorite Disney movie. Like this is one that you put on, and if somebody's like, "Why are we watching The Lion King?" You're like, "What is wrong with
Get
you?
out.
Like, what are you
Get out of my
talking about?
house.
Like, leave."
Yeah.
I think that it is like one of the best films of all time, and I
100%.
I I feel so lucky to live in a time where I gotta watch it in theaters, that I gotta watch with my kids. That like
Yeah.
it's unbelievable.
There might be a time. When did it release in? I'm surprised that they're not doing like a 30th anniversary in theaters because it was released on June 15th, 1994. We would have heard something if they were doing that, but like that might be an opportunity to, you know, take your kids to see this movie in theaters, right? To maybe have some of that
We
experience.
took Maxwell to the live action one, and
Yeah.
that one is like maybe the most controversial of the like live action Disney movies. And it's funny because it's like, well, one, it's not live action, like it's all CG, like
Yeah.
um,
Live action.
and I think that movie has some problems. Like I think that like removing iconic things like "Be Prepared," the way that they did is weird, and
Hmm.
like things like that. But he loved it, and you know, it's not. It's the thing is like I think going into some of these live action Disney spin-offs is like you want to capture them, like people want to feel the magic they felt the first time they watched the cartoon, right? But they're like, oh, this is going to be better because it's going to look real. And we've talked about this on the show, but like there's something special about cartoons, like
Yeah.
something you can do things with cartoons that you can't do with live action. And I love the live action Lion King. I think that Billy crushes Timon. Like I think that like
Hmm.
the parts that are different, everybody does a good job. It's a different film. It's really great. Anyway, I went off about your number two. Do you want to say anything else about it?
Yeah. It was so Lion King was like my first exposure to drag. Right. We've got that with there's so this cast is so good. Um, Matthew Broderick as Simba, Jeremy Irons as Scar, James Earl Jones as Mufasa. Like um, Nathan Lane's Timon, um, Rowan
Did you
Atkinson
see
as
what's
Zazu.
trending on TikTok right now?
No.
They did do a 30th something this week
Oh yeah.
because Nathan Lane and Billy Eichner, or Billy, is it Billy Eichner? What's the other? Anyway, check TikTok. They did a bunch, like Akuna Matata is like trending on TikTok right now because
Oh okay.
they did like a thing for it, like literally as the time of the recording.
Okay. Gotcha. And just rounding out the cast, even the hyenas, right? You got Whoopi Goldberg, uh, Cheech, Marin, and Jim Cummings,
Dude,
right?
Whoopi
Like,
crushed that role.
yeah,
She crushed it.
yeah. The leader of the hyenas, Ed's hyena laugh is super iconic. It's very like
I just remember
real.
like one of my favorite lines. What, Ed? Like it's one of my favorite lines.
Mhm. I also think that people identify with each of the different hyenas. Like
Did
I'm
we order our
definitely an
dinner to
Ed.
go? No, why? Because there it
Because there it goes.
goes. It's such a good. The script is so good.
Yeah,
All right,
it's
okay,
definitely one of the most watchable movies of all time.
all right,
Like you don't know what to watch, you just no throw on Lion King.
dude, it's so
You'll
good.
be good.
All right, I'm gonna go to my number two.
Okay,
Then we'll go to your number one. My number two is a Goofy movie.
really
Oh,
stands out for you.
yeah, it does. Good joke. Good joke. I There was a long time in my life, but this was just my favorite movie of all time. I'm a little bit older. I'm a little bit wiser. I've had a lot more cheese, uh, on my, leaning tower cheeses to realize that maybe you shouldn't do that. This film, I wish Disney did this more, and I'm gonna talk about why. If you looked at Goofy, you expected a movie about Goofy, this would never come up. Like this doesn't happen. Somebody made a movie about Max and their dad and made a masterpiece. And it speaks to me on so many levels. One, I wanted to be Max growing up. I thought it was the coolest thing in the whole world. I remember I would be mad at my mom if she cut my hair, or if I put my cap on backwards and my hair didn't come out the front. I would be so upset. Like, I thought he was the coolest thing. Uh, Also, uh, when are we getting the Power Line vinyl? Like, we need an 18 song Power Line. It it's so funny. Disney's like, all right, what we need to do is we need to make a pop star that is a mix between Prince and Michael Jackson for this film. And everyone's like, okay, can we have more? They're like, what? No. Like, what would we do more? They're like, you just made like the most amazing, wonderful live art. Like, everybody wants this. They're like, yeah, we're not doing that. So the music is gas. The pizza is so iconic that people literally, like, a Goofy movie is talked about with pizza so much. There's nothing to do with pizza, Patty.
Yeah. What do you think Portnoy would score?
Oh, he
Yeah,
way too much flop.
too much
It's
flop. Yeah,
so much flop. The cheese, though, the
the
cheese.
cheese.
Here's the thing, man. You only get that kind of cheese on like really artificial, like bad cheese. But like that's the kind of cheese you want sometimes. Sometimes you just want that.
And I mean, you know how it, with like commercials and stuff.
Oh, it's glue. It's so gross.
Yeah, it's glue and it gives it
So
that
gross.
pull. And yeah, but man, like they knew then, they know now, right? Like
The water beds with the fish in them. There's like so many amazing moments with this film. And what's so
I
funny
thought about
is
that
we
when I had a
like
waterbed.
we talked about, we didn't talk about with Lion King when we should have, of like the jokes change, like the jokes you get,
Mm-hmm.
like they're so much funnier when you're an adult. And Disney used to do this really well. I don't think they do as well anymore, for what it's worth. But like they make they make jokes for kids and jokes for adults in the same movies, so that when you watch it with your kids, it's
You
really
laugh at
funny
some
for both
things.
of you.
Yeah.
Goofy movie and Lion King are top tier at this. It's so good. Uh, from like Roxanne's dad. Like, no kid watches that and it's like, they're like, why is Roxanne's dad so weird? And like, you watch as an adult, you're like, he's like, don't touch my daughter. Like, I will kill you. And it's so funny. I I think that like a Goofy movie. I had a I we were doing the mini Shakespearean festival at school when I was in high school, and I put on standout in the like dressing room, like where people were getting dressed and changing costumes and stuff. And one of the lead actors for the Shakespearean Festival was like, "This is like the millennial boy song. Like if you're a millennial boy, like you identified with this, no matter who you were, no matter what age. Like it was the thing." And I don't know. There are two Powerline songs in this whole movie. They're total bops. Uh, Also, the other rest of the soundtrack is a total bop. The the connection between your dad and your son is questioned again and again, and like, what does it mean to be a kid, and like making your dad happy? What does it mean to be a dad and making your kid happy? It is yeah, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, I obviously had Lion King number one, but like there are a lot of times where this would be my number one, baby.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I watched this movie until like high school. Like I missed this one as a kid, so I don't have that kind of that same emotional connection. Um but it definitely makes sense watching it now too, where I mean, I'm not a dad yet. Um but you'll have those moments where you're like eh, with Max, you're connecting with him. Just like, man, his dad's doing all this stupid stuff. And then you have these moments where you now connect with Goofy of like,
It's hard, right? Like, I'm an adult now. I got two kids. Max doesn't want to be at the Possum place, and there are parts where you're like, okay, Goofy, you're wrong. Like taking
mhm,
him to like the possum thing and like making
yeah,
events. Like, don't put your kid in uncomfortable situations in public. I think is like a solid rule. I think Goofy does that wrong, and it's why Bex gets so upset.
mhm,
From the other side, though, and I think that we see this through the film, like learning the perfect cast, learning from your dad, and like going fishing is like a thing that Max will probably teach his kids. That was personal, right? It was them. Like Goofy tried to architect a moment with the possums, whereas
mhm,
he didn't have to architect it with the fishing. That
right,
was just them hanging out, and it naturally became a memory. And obviously, the dance at the end of the movie. Um, Sorry, I'm like waxing poetic about being a dad here, but like, uh, it's about understanding a kid, and Goofy does a really good job at the end, and Max does a better job later in the movie of understanding, like, oh, my dad's just trying to love me. So I don't know.
yeah.
It's a pretty beautiful movie. Speaking of beautiful movies and uh, soundtracks, let's talk about your number one.
Oh yeah. So this movie, the CD. I'll just put it this way: the CD for this movie in my household was scratched and scraped so much that, like, from use, right? I listened to this so much that it just got destroyed. I even think I still have that like CD somewhere. Um, but this is one of the best soundtracks ever made. Um, I have sung songs from this again, and this is a go-to in voice lessons for me. That's Tarzan. Um, and my first kind of memory, I can't remember which Disney movie or what movie I saw. Um, but there was a trailer for Tarzan. The trailers for this one, it just felt big and out of this world. Um, like it ends with him like landing and doing that like look back. Um, and I think every boy around the year 1999 wanted to be Tarzan, and that was just it informed a lot of my outdoor activities, and it was great.
Tarzan did this really. So, just behind the scenes of Tarzan, they were very purposeful about the vine surfing.
Hmm.
So it is actually meant to emulate Tony Hawk because of the popularity of Tony Hawk grinding and skateboarding at the time. And they put so much effort into it that they like made a whole new animation style to make it work. Like that was the key point. Tony Hawk did videos about his vine and tree surfing. Like it
Hmm.
was very marketed. Literally, I saw this movie at the Villa, the same place I saw the Lion King. We were with skateboarders trying to do ollies outside the movie theater, waiting for our parents to pick us up. Like it
What a
was,
time.
it was so. It's so funny to me that like this was like my like I was 9 years old when this movie came out. Like this is me like becoming a kid. Uh, so
Yeah.
it's so funny. Also, I have a very personal connection with this film. If this would have come in at my next spot. Maxwell loved this film as a baby. I've probably seen it like 200 times. Um, but also, You'll Be in My Heart, um, multiple versions. I used to lay on the ground next to my daughter. She was in her crib and sing this to get her to go to sleep. And to this day, if she hears this song, she wants me to sing it and she wants to lay down. It is, it's kind of a masterpiece as like a soundtrack. And we didn't talk about like Brother Bear yet, which I think we should. I think that I talked about how like when we originally did this episode, like I didn't want to include soundtrack because I didn't want to like overweigh my thought of the film.
Hmm.
Holy crap! This like when we talk about best Disney soundtracks, I talked about this with Hercules. This and Brother Bear are like it's unbelievable. Like how who Phil Collins? Who do you think you are? Like who gave you the right to do this? I think Tarzan's a great movie. I think the soundtrack is like the best. It's hard to argue against something so good like Son of Man. Like, is there a song on the soundtrack that isn't just like
They're they're all bangers, certified. Th-
they got in sync to do Trash in the Camp?
Yeah,
This was
that was huge
1999.
too.
NSYNC is like the most popular band in the world. They're just jumping in, Trash in the Camp with that song is so good. The whole thing is
Which I mean, it is a bonus thing. So like, there is a version of Trash in the Camp that is Rosie O'Donnell, right? That is in the movie. Um, the NSYNC version is also on the album. Um, Stranger, yeah, Strangers Like Me, Son of Man, Two Worlds, um, just
It
it's so
like
good.
for me, this and Hercules are the best Disney soundtracks of all time. It's those two.
Yeah. Um, and it's not
And we didn't even talk about the cheetah yet.
uh yeah, the lep leopard.
Jaguar? Leopard?
Yeah, leopard Sabor. Um he still to this day he's one of the more haunting uh villains. Just like he, he gave like real fear and like good like jump scares um in this movie. And something you mentioned, last week that I didn't know before, but like Clayton's coloring of like the yellow to match Sabor, and like that like through line of the villain um was really clever, and I didn't realize that until
Yeah.
we talked about it. So
Dude, what's really cool about Sabor too is he's actually in multiple scenes where like anytime I think they might play his music in the score some of the times, but like
mhm.
you'll see like that he's stalking. And
Yes.
I watched this. I think it was somebody is listening to my phone because I got TikToks about this. But
Mm.
there's actually multiple scenes where you see Sabor behind vines, behind trees, at the beginning of the film where he's not attacking yet.
Because he's planning. Yeah.
He's plotting and planning, and it's I don't know. I think it's pretty crazy. Like, uh, for what it's worth, I did get it wrong. It is a leopard,
Yeah.
um, which is a bigger cat
The
than a
cheetah.
cheetah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's not a cheetah. I don't know why I
Yeah.
said cheetah.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think that for me and Patty B, please just like put me in my place.
Sure.
This film is so like overshadowed by its soundtrack that it's sometimes hard. Like, who is she falling in love with? Like, this is a wild man with the talks to monkeys. Like, what is happening?
Yeah. Something you kind of mentioned too, where like I understand that it feels very not real in some parts, right? Like it's meant to. I mean, it has humans, right? And it's kind of like set in the real world, but it's very not real world. Um, so like I could maybe see how the sound. I mean, the soundtrack you feel kind of overshadows like the film that way, but like I I think that the with the animation and the way that this was presented and done, I think we all have we all need a friend like Turk, and we all have a friend like Tantor. Um,
Is this water sanitary? It looks
it looks
questionable to
questionable to me.
me. So good.
Yeah, or yeah, just like you have like
Can I ask you a
your
question?
hesitant friends, your introverts, and your extroverts like Turk.
Can I ask you a
Um,
question?
yeah.
Was this the end of a Disney era?
Um, hey, look.
I think it was. I think it was legitimately the end.
Yeah, you could say that. I think um with Y2K came like Dinosaur and New Groove.
Dude, dinosaur's so
Like
bad.
Fantasia 2000 came out right like right around there at the end. Um you can kind of see that this is really an interesting thing. If you go to and the links in our show notes here, the list of Disney theatrical animated feature films is what you like we use to kind of just track and see which ones. It's got a really good like color legend to see which ones were Walt Disney Productions feature animation and animation studios, um to differentiate, and you can kind of see where that
Dude,
breaks
it
off in
literally
those different
literally goes
periods.
Tarzan. I'm trying to find the next theatrical. The next theatrical film is Emperor's New Groove, right? So
Yes.
like, it really was the end of
Technically dinosaur, but yeah,
the movie. Sucks.
I understand. I
You
get
know
that.
what's funny is there are other dinosaur movies. They should just not make movies about dinosaurs. Did you see the Good Dinosaur, Patty B?
Don't think I did.
Good job. It's the literal worst movie I've ever sat through.
Oh no.
It's so bad. We walked out of that movie, and I looked at my wife. I was like, "That was the worst movie I've ever seen." And she's like, "I didn't enjoy a minute. I didn't enjoy a minute of that movie."
Huh. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely say it's kind of the end of the era because like the next like great thing and
I mean,
Shelby
the
was kind.
Tigger movie was a theatrical release, and I think for a lot of people, they really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I am not one of them.
I get that. Yeah, they did the Recess
But
movie
like,
too. So.
think about this. We go after this. I sorry, we're like waxing poetic at the end of this podcast, but like after this, you get Atlantis: The Lost Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You get then you get Lilo and Stitch. Hey, maybe some of these just suck. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of people love Atlantis: The Lost Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Very quotable. Not for me. Anyway, Patty B. That's it. That's our top fives.
That's about it.
We already talked about my number one. It's the best movie ever made in The Lion King.
I will say that when I was going over this list with Shelby, with my wife, she was kind of miffed that Monsters Inc. and Toy Story weren't on our list.
they're Pixar movies. They're not.
I know.
They're not
Yeah.
Pixar.
But
Do you want it?
yeah.
I don't. Not yucking enemies. Yum. But one of the things that my wife and I connected with, like together, we were like
Mm-hmm.
the things that like one of the things that like brought us together as a couple is we both hate Toy Story.
You hate Toy Story?
I think it sucks. I think it's weird. I think like there's a lot of. I know it's like one of the most beloved movie franchises. Like it's gonna get like a sixth film or whatever. So like I know that like it's beloved, but it is something that I connect with my wife with that we both literally
Just both did not like Toy Story.
just hate it. We just
Huh.
actually don't like it.
Wow. That's so interesting.
It's okay. Like you guys can love what you love. I know that everybody listening to this probably loves Toy Story.
Yeah.
Just can't stand it. Just actually,
we'll have to do a deep dive into that.
I'm sure it's like some emotional, like traumatic thing. If you want to talk about your emotional trauma in our episode comments, just go to YouTube or Spotify, leave a comment there. Honestly, I'm really glad that we redid this episode. I think that like this was better. Patty, did you have more fun?
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good
It's
time.
also way longer. I don't know if you noticed how much longer this was.
No, I haven't.
I loved it. I think that one of the things that Disney does really well is that it brings people together. It brings whether it's them buying Star Wars and Star Wars bringing people together, whether it's Marvel, Disney Animation. Disney does a really good job of bringing people together and making them excited about stuff. And I think that we talked about some really great movies that brought people together today. So you can find me at Spencer13H on Twitter or Heezy Game if you want to talk about nerd stuff. You can also find me every week on CCMTG for Magic the Gathering content. We missed a week this week of Constructed Clash, trying to help our friend for the RC, and then that didn't happen. But we'll be back with Constructed Clash soon. Patty B, you and I are going to Vegas though.
Yeah, we are. SCG Vegas is coming up. We've got our stuff all booked and ready to go. Now we're trying to figure out. I am kind of sad that like this whole One Piece thing is starting like after we leave.
Oh, at the thing.
Did you see that? They're
Yeah.
taking over the sphere on the 10th.
I don't think that I've
That
watched
whole
enough
like
One
week.
Piece to watch
Yeah,
whatever's on the sphere.
it's gonna be cool, and there'll be videos of it. Like it would have been a cool opportunity to like make some
How
content around
far
that.
are you into One Piece?
I've watched the live action season 1
Oh, okay.
on Netflix, and that's it so far. But like working at the card shop, right? Like the card game is really popular, so like I know a lot of the characters, kind of through that, and it's so daunting to try and tackle. But I think we could have made some cool content around that, and there'll be some sweet videos from the sphere.
If people want to find you, where can they do so?
They can find me on our TikTok, at Need to Nerd.
Oh, are you gonna make a top
I
5 villains song?
I am. Since we talked about this awesome thing, I've figured out all the settings on
Are
on
you gonna do
OBS.
it? Am I gonna
Yes,
see a top 5
you're gonna
villain
see
song?
it.
I
It's
love it.
gonna be there. Um,
So
and then also on Twitter,
at Need to Nerd Pod.
at Need to Nerd Pod on TikTok, and on Twitter, at PattyBMTG.
I love it. Thank you everybody for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and don't forget to stand out. You know, be prepared, and you know, you can always go from 0 to hero.
Out there.
What?
You can go from 0 to hero out there.
Why don't
that one's because you haven't watched Hunchback. So in a minute.
Baby.
What you'll need to do. So I will watch Soul. If you'll watch Hunchback this week. We'll report back.
Hold on.
I've
So
not watched Soul yet.
next week is our Need to Nerd video game consoles.
Oh right, yeah.
But I will watch Hunchback right now.
Okay, cool.
If we put Soul on the schedule right now, I don't think you want me to do a review of Hunchback, man. Like
No, I don't. Not a review, but like it'd been a while since you'd seen it,
I'll watch it.
You're kind of curious on like how it was in my top 5.
I'll watch Hunchback again.
Okay.
Okay.
Sweet.
Are you gonna watch Soul with your wife?
Yeah, we will.
Why are you sad? It's
I don't like feeling sad, Spencer.
Here's the thing. This is making the episode. It was way sadder during the pandemic than it probably will be now. Like the existential crisis that you probably would have gone through during the pandemic, which is when I watched it when it came out, was pretty bad.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, nothing matters. I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
It's good. It is beautiful and happy and sad and great. Go watch it. Thank you everybody so much for listening. We'll see y'all next time with another episode of the Need to Nerd podcast.